How many of you told yourself that you're not a confrontational person or that you don't like conflict? I hear this often from those who are people pleasers, aka fawn types. The term fawn was actually coined by Pete Walker, and he stated, "Fawn types seek safety by merging with the wishes, needs, and demands of others. They act as if they believe that the price of admission to any relationship is the forfeiture of all of their needs, rights, preferences, and boundaries." In this video, I'm going to use the term people-pleasing and fawn types interchangeably. You might not notice that you're actually fawning. You may see yourself as being helpful and easygoing. You don't want to stir the pot because you actually don't want people to be upset with you. And you don't acknowledge if someone hurt your feelings because they might get mad at you, or they make you out to be the bad guy. In turn, you suppress your feelings and you feel bad for causing any problems. You tell yourself, "I need to work on communicating better," or "What's wrong with me? Why can't I just be normal?" You internalize that you're the problem, not just because you genuinely feel that way, but because other people make you feel that way as well. It's important to note that the behavior of people-pleasing didn't just happen. It was something that developed over time, and most likely it's a trauma response from childhood. Fawning is a part of our trauma response to perceived danger. It manifests from childhood trauma and complex PTSD. It's our brain's way of seeking safety and survival due to exposure to prolonged trauma and traumatic events. Let's think about our brain for just a moment. Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, the author of The Body Keeps the Score, stated, "Sensory information about the world arrives through our eyes, our ears, and our nose, and our skin." What does that mean? It means that our brain filters this information, eventually leading to the amygdala, which warns us of impending danger. Your stress hormone is activated and your body is preparing to fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. You're in survival mode. As a fawn, you may cater to an abusive parent by trying to make them happy so they don't rage towards you. You might cater to an abusive partner so the abuse is few and far between. Remember what Pete said? Fawn types seek safety by merging with wishes, needs, and demands of others. You may clean the house excessively before the abuser gets home. You may also have dinner prepared for them on the table, and then you may also seek shelter in your bedroom just to stay out of harm's way. Or you busy yourself with other chores in the home. Your self-protector is dormant because you learned that fighting back can actually make things worse. The punishment doesn't have to just be physical abuse. It can be emotional, psychological, and neglect. For example, perhaps your parents ignored you as a child to teach you a lesson on talking back and knowing your place. Most likely you were called selfish, lazy, stupid, or good for nothing for not being useful to your parents. Or maybe they gave you conditional love. If you didn't do what you were told, or if you don't get straight A's, your parent would become very cold and unforgiving, as if you did the worst thing in the world. You learn that the more you protest your parents, the likelihood it would lead to retaliation. You placate the abuser by being who you think they want you to be. You have determined that safety is purchased by becoming useful to the parent. You identified that being useful contributed to temporary safety from the abuser. Your needs and wants were non-existent because it was about making the abuser happy with you. You adapt to your environment and became of servitude. As a child, you're trying to maintain connection in an unsafe environment. After all, you are still dependent on them for survival. As an adult, you don't know how to maintain a healthy connection without being of service, helpful, a perfectionist, a doormat, a parentified child, a people pleaser, or agreeable. As previously mentioned, fawn types act as if the price of admission to any relationship is the forfeiture of all their needs, their rights, preferences, and boundaries. This doesn't just exist in childhood. This behavior continues to replicate itself into adulthood. Fawning can manifest as codependency. Pete Walker defines trauma-based codependency as self-abandonment or self-sacrifice. These folks have a dormant fight response, and their codependency is fear-based. They don't express their needs and boundaries in a relationship. These folks are susceptible to being abused and re-victimized. As children, you were probably taught that talking back was dangerous. And now that you're an adult, you're learning to become great at listening, and you're able to pull conversations out of other people in order to keep the attention off of yourself. Are you someone who asks tons of questions, and when the person tries to ask about you, your response is short and turned back onto them? Those that engage in this behavior don't want to risk exposing their thoughts, views, and emotions because it's too risky. Pete named 5 implicit codes of the fawn type. Number 1, it's safer to listen than to talk. Number 2, it's safer to agree than to dissent. Number 3, it's safer to offer care than to ask for help. Number 4, it's safer to elicit the other than to express yourself. And number 5, it's safer to leave choices to the other rather than to express preferences. The idea of saying no and setting boundaries can elicit an emotional flashback. The person might dissociate, and in order to maintain safety, they revert back to their fawn type behavior. I'm going to use my fictional character Jane to depict what fawning looks like in a relationship. Jane is 45 years old, and she's been in a relationship with Tim for the past 5 years. Tim is demanding, argumentative, and confrontational. Jane is all too familiar with that type of behavior. She expressed her feelings of anxiety and panic attacks to a neighbor. With her neighbor's encouragement, Jane recently started therapy. Tim wasn't happy about it. He said it would poison her mind against him. Plus, it would take her time away from the relationship. However, he eventually agreed to allow Jane to move forward. How nice of him. She opened up to her therapist about her anger. This was the first time she acknowledged it out loud. She said she feels angry towards Tim, but she's not sure why. I should be happy. Tim is the only person who has ever cared about me since I was a kid. She immediately felt bad. Jane told the therapist she's being selfish for attending therapy and bad-mouthing Tim. He isn't a bad guy. He's just misunderstood. He is very protective of me, but some people believe that he mistreats me and is controlling. Although sometimes I want to scream when I'm alone. Even though he is protective, I feel lonely and suffocated. However, Tim needs me, but I don't know why I feel lonely and angry towards him. I devote all of my time and energy to him. I can't trust how I feel. I don't know how I feel. Jane expressed fear that Tim would leave her if she were to tell him how she really feels. I don't want him to be upset with me. He might leave me if he knew how I really felt. Jane doesn't have any hobbies or interests because she says she doesn't know what she likes. She also mentioned not having many friends. Jane has a hard time saying no when coworkers ask to take her shift at work or when her boss asks her to stay late. What if they don't like me anymore? I don't want to rock the boat, although it makes me very upset. With further exploration, the therapist realizes that Jane lacks boundaries and she doesn't have a sense of self. She's also in a codependent relationship with Tim. She has deep anger within, not just about Tim, but about her childhood. The therapist unpacked with Jane and she opened up about her childhood. Jane said that she thinks her mother is a narcissist, or at least has many traits of narcissism. At least that's what Tim told her. Jane told the therapist that Tim doesn't like her mother because he mistreats her. You see, he is protective of me. She told the therapist that no matter what, she could never please her mom. To this day, Jane still craves her mother's acceptance, but never receives it. Jane's parents are still married, however, it's not a happy marriage. Her dad used to protect Jane from her mother's abuse, but that eventually stopped. Her mom made his life hell, and he would just retreat. Jane spoke about her mother being jealous of her and her father's relationship. Anytime he protected me, Mom would scream at him and trash the house. Growing up, Jane learned quickly how to be of service. Without her father's protection, she wasn't able to fight back. She told the therapist that she was on her own. Her father started to rage at Jane for simple things, but he could never raise his voice to her mother. He eventually took all his frustrations out on Jane. Their relationship has become strained and non-existent. Jane told the therapist that no one protected her, and she was on her own until she met Tim. This is an example of an individual who is codependent, has internal anger, fear of abandonment, dormant self-protector, disconnected from the self, and seeks love and protection from an unsafe partner. They want to be seen as valuable and be needed, so they forfeit themselves to become more useful and likable. This is what happens in childhood in order to survive their environment, and the behavior continues into adulthood. You're still in survival mode and you don't even recognize it. Although many children are very resilient and they grow up to be well-adjusted adults, some aren't so lucky. Breaking free from fawning can be challenging, but it is possible. The following tips can be useful to help you move forward. Number 1, understand the origins of your people-pleasing behavior. Once you get to the root cause, you'll be able to understand yourself and your current behavior, especially as it relates to romantic and platonic relationships. Number 2, face your fear. It can be real or imagined. However, the fear you experienced as a child was real. Heal from that time in your life in order to move forward. There's a chance that you will experience an emotional flashback. The book Complex PTSD From Surviving to Thriving lists 13 steps to managing an emotional flashback. Number 3, understand the importance of setting boundaries. If you don't understand the reason behind setting boundaries, it will be hard for you to say no and ask for your needs and wants to be met. Number 4, get to know yourself. Sometimes you don't know what boundaries to set because you're disconnected from yourself. Identify your likes, your dislikes, your values, your morals, etc. Ask yourself how you want to be treated by others and how you want to show up in a relationship. Number 5, connect with yourself. Identify your own feelings, needs, and wants. Download an emotions wheel that showcases various emotions. Start validating your thoughts and your feelings and connecting to your body. Ask yourself what you need and what is your body telling you in the moment. Number 6, practice, practice, practice. Meaning, start setting boundaries and saying no with people you feel safe with. It can be a best friend, it can be a sibling, it can be a neighbor or a therapist. In addition, when you practice, try not to explain your no. And the final tip is to have self-compassion. You might tell yourself, I should know all of this already. Why is this taking so long? Healing isn't a linear process. Take breaks and be kind to yourself. This is just the beginning. If you made it to the end of my video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe as it does help my channel grow. Comment below if you identify as a fawn type and what your strategy is to break free. And if you are a recovering fawn type, what tips can you give others? Thanks for watching. Bye for now.